Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special Conch Productions Artist Chat series, our CSIFF and Karukerament Podcast conversation. And I'm Magaly Colimon-Christopher. I am the founder of Conch Productions and the host of Conch IFF and Karukerament Podcast Conversation, the co-host. Not only am I that, I'm also the founder of Conch International Film Festival. And we are going to be doing our festival this year, October 9th to 11th. We are continuing our amazing Caribbean cinema then and now conversation with the fabulous Maëlla Kancel, founder and host of Karukerament Podcast. Welcome, 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 Maëlla.
Thank you, Magali. I'm excited for today's conversation, especially because we're exploring how Caribbean storytelling moves across disciplines, film, movement, and music.
And you want to know who our guests are today? Our guests today are two incredible film artists. Gabri Christa, a Curaçaoan-American filmmaker, choreographer, and interdisciplinary artist, woo, whose work spans dance, performance, and film. And we have Yannick Rosine, a Guadeloupean producer, screenwriter, and director. And his work combines multiple art forms to create powerful cinematic storytelling. Welcome, Gabri. Welcome, Yannick.
Welcome. Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to start off with the questions. You guys ready for questions?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. When you think about Caribbean cinema, and I think about it all the time, but when you think about Caribbean cinema then and now, what feels like the most significant shift in the stories being told?
In general, I find it really hard to just say what it is now and what it was then. The filmmakers I grew up with, of course, were Felix de Roy and Norman de Palme, with films such as Avant Gabriel, El Masita di Desolato, that they are part of the world global cinema. I see more short form, probably also because there's more young makers and accessible forms from the Caribbean. But I don't think there is such a big difference. I almost think that if you think about a film like Almacete Desolato from Felix and Norman, that really pushed a lot of boundaries. And I'm not sure if there is such a big difference, minus maybe in the technique and it being HD. So I personally don't see such a big difference.
So when you say pushed a lot of boundaries, for those who are not familiar with this filmmaker, if you could, would you mind spelling out their name?
I think if you look at Avant Gabriel, it has um, gay characters talking about, those things. So societal pushback against societal beliefs, colonial beliefs. So in that sense, the film is from the 80s. It was already pushing a lot of topics that were groundbreaking then and still would be now, I think. That's
Thank,
what I mean, yeah.
thank you. Yannick.
For me, I think that the technique, as you said, materials and social media made it like more and more filmmakers are appearing because before in Guadeloupe it was like very expensive to make movie. So we don't have so many filmmakers. And now I think it's like cheaper, but it's not so cheaper because if you want to make like good movies, you have to have a very nice material. But now with the social media, you can see many people trying to do things and maybe have a career in cinema. So you can see from 1 month ago, we have a Netflix series coming from Martinique and making like number one in many countries because now we want to see this kind of movie, this kind of, uh, you know, um, green trees, things like that, beaches. And so I think now we have more and more people wanted to do cinema. But I can say beside of this, um, we have two kind of cinema. The one which is like expensive and with the good materials, and the one which is like easier to make but not so how can I say that, high quality, you know. So people want to say things, but to have cinema like I used to know it, I used to learn it, it's we have a lot of travel to make, you know, to get there.
My first thought was about the new film by Haitian filmmaker Jessica Genius, and it's called Marie-Madeleine. I think it's a trans woman who is a prostitute. So I think she's pushing boundaries as well. We definitely need to get more stories that touch on topics that are universal. And maybe cinema can actually help talk about these topics. And my question would be, what's the difference between the way you were making films early in your career and how you make films now?
For me, it's like it's difficult because now my kind of film and what I wanted to do is to make film that make people think, make people, you know, understand where they are living, how they are living, and in a good way, like to make them think, but have action in a good way. But I am like sad to see that the public doesn't care about these kind of stories. They care about more, I would say, violence, care about more drugs, care about more things like that. And as you said, it's universal. Everybody wants to see this. And now we can see like a shift in what you want to say to people, which kind of story and how you want to make them think, and how you want to sell a movie. Because now selling a movie is like more important than what you are telling in this movie. But if you make a film with violence, gun, and things like people get killed, this will have a lot of success, but success in for the filmmaker because it's things you sell. But what is the result in the head of the public, the head of the youngsters? I'm kind of sad because I can see it how it is moving and how difficult it is for us if we want to say if you want to tell good story. It's very difficult right now.
So you define good story as films that inspire social awakening or social change,
Yeah,
as opposed to, I guess, telling stories that fit into this box of this is what people in the Caribbean do. They fight, they destroy, they kill. And
that's so I don't say good or bad movie, but I say
the storyline, the content.
yeah, storyline, yeah.
Thank you, Yannick.
I think my filmmaking hasn't really changed that much. I've also produced like a feature and stuff like that, but the kind of stories I want to tell and how I want to tell them, I'm always experimenting. So to answer your question, it's like if you ask about how it has changed, what has changed is maybe that I pushed the boundaries even a bit more than I did before. I think in the beginning I was trying to have a clearer storyline, and granted, those films do better on like a platform like Quelly TV. And I don't have that kind of house for the kind of films that I make now. However, I personally like my films better now, but it has a lot of interpretation. So I really, for me, I believe that film can also be art, that people can be really invited to think. It's more difficult, and I also think that in the islands we have some maybe one or two cinemas and they play like American big films. So the education of what people actually see in the Caribbean itself is maybe not as big as we would have access to the in New York, for example.
Yeah, that's right. That
Yeah.
yeah, I agree because the film we make, there is no place to show them besides festivals. And if we are not in festivals, nobody can see them. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, and that's something, I'm exploring with other venues of showing the work, but um yeah, I mean that I think that that continues to be kind of a challenge to deal with. But that's an artist challenge also.
Thank you so much for sharing that because I love the way you tell story, Gabri. I love the way you tell story, Yannick. And honestly, one of the reasons why we're partnering with the Render Yard, which is a distribution platform, is because I want to create a space so that artists like you can say, there is a place where my work can be streamed and I can make some amount of an income and I can reach an audience that's more than just the festival audience. Because the definition of what is storytelling, to have it in a strict commercial box, what's the point? It's an art form, right? And so, Gabri, this is a question for you. Now, when you think about Caribbean heritage storytelling, how do you feel? I mean, you bring movement into your work. How does movement shape your understanding of your contribution to the world as a Caribbean heritage storyteller and how stories should be told on film?
I think we have to be really careful to define what Caribbeanness is, right? Because we're still people. And I use an embodied camera as I use, so the camera moves a lot. I choreograph the camera in all my work, especially latest work. So that's very much changed. Maybe older works I was not as conscious, but last 10 years I've completely dedicated myself to sort of single shot cinema, which is I was influenced by this Indonesian Dutch cinematographer who won best cinematography at Cannes, for example, Leonard Retel Helmrich. He actually passed away. So he's been a bit influenced after I choreographed one of his works. So I do believe as a place where we do dance and move, and that I do think is part of the culture. I aim to put that in my work and in the camera and in the choreography. And I believe that dance can be a storyteller too, that you don't necessarily need to have the spoken word. But it's not it's still challenging for some people to just give themselves the freedom to move with. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We get caught up in defining Caribbean identity through a spoken language. And so it brings the question that a lot of us speak the language of the colonizer. So how true our stories can be if we use this language. So right now, I'm really more about the intention of the filmmaker and my own emotion in the way I receive the film, rather than focus on, is there Creole, is there patois, are the dialogues are in French or in English? So does that make the film less authentic? And authenticity is what I feel every time I watch films by Yannick as well. And I feel at home every time I watch his films. And so, Yannick, you worked across writing, directing, producing, you do everything. So, how does your background in literature and music influence your filmmaking?
Everything. First of all, I was an editor, yeah. So like 15 years, I worked on TV. I worked with many production before as an editor. So music in and editing is like very, very close. And as a musician, I used it in my way of edit. But beside of this, I read many books because I loved it, and I wrote like 4 years ago. The difficulty is to how you translate your reality, which is a colonized reality, if I can say this, into a film which is going to go in the world and not lose what you are. So in my film, With or Without You, we are French and Creole because in Guadeloupe, we speak French and Creole. It's not like we speak only Creole. We do the both. And like we have a emotion language, if I can say this, and a way of living, and we mix both. So for me, I have to take a picture of what it is and not showing what I want, you know? And for me, cinema, which is I would say dead thing. Is when you do a film, it's over when it's done and it's going to the public for years. Music can change. Every time you go on stage, you can add something, do it, you know. But when it's a dead heart or a dead thing, you have to be precise just as the moment you do it, because after that you will just have to explain it. And when I will pass away, this film will be there. And for me, this is important as an artist to what do you leave, and you will not be there to explain what you did. So for me, the picture has to be the more accurate, because if you're not there to explain what you did, people have to see what it was and where it was, um, where you did it, you know. And for me, when I do a film, I thinking about a Japanese people or a Chinese people will watch it and will love it. And from my experience, with or without you, went in a festival in Cannes, and I was afraid that people would not understand because there's Creole, there's French, and my film is like a lot of dialogue. So I was scared that people didn't have time to read the subtitles. But after the screening, a Chinese girl came to tell me she loved it because she has the same story in her country. And
Mm.
I was surprised that she understood everything. She feels everything. And she came to tell me this. So I said, okay, the job accomplished mission, because Chinese people can understand what I wanted to say. And I didn't have to explain anything. So for me, this is the way I will do things.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you. And I really resonate with what you said. I've heard a lot of other filmmakers saying, I don't know if they will get my story. If you're not of my culture, will you get my story? And and I love that testament that yes, people will get our stories.
They will. Yeah.
Mm. They will.
I showed Country as a test before it was finished in the middle of Ohio, and they were asked what they thought it was about. They all got it. In some form, they were like, "Yes, a woman dancing with her different cultures." I'm like, "Yeah, good." They did go and look it
But
up.
for me, the danger is to wanted to look like, you know, wanted to do like other do. And this is, as I said in the beginning, kind of sad for me, because when you want to sell a movie, you want to do like, you don't want to do what you are. And
Yeah.
this is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. And you see it happening when you look at these streaming channels. You see the content of the specific cultures becoming very westernized, whereas when you first experienced it, it was uniquely theirs and wanting to be like. I understand that. I understand that, but you're indie filmmakers and they're my favorite types of filmmakers. And so I want to ask you a question. When you're thinking about Caribbean heritage filmmakers and today, not then, but today, and they're trying to push boundaries, in addition to trying to tell your story your way, how well, how else are modern day, you've went to a film festival recently, Gabri, how else are Caribbean heritage filmmakers pushing boundaries?
Actually, I see a lot of people trying to make really good films so that they're going to be accepted in certain realms. I don't see, I'm not young. I don't see pushing against it, playing with thing. I do see that a little bit in maybe people will go more into visual art, who
Mm.
sort of like leave the film world, like I'm going to do installation work where I have more freedom. But within the film festivals, I think it's also because of the format. Um, I can't say like, oh, I see a boundary pushing thing. I might see that in a Screen Dance Film Festival, but I haven't seen it. Like I see good films. Don't get me wrong. They're good films. They're nice stories, but it's not like that there is an experimentation with film or duration or timing or sound or doing something that, that super excites you. Yeah, I haven't seen it. Like I would be wanting to see these people.
Thank you, Gabby. How about you, Yannick?
We, as producer and with my, we tried to push it to make things new because we had great filmmakers before, like Ezan Palsi. And I
Yeah.
remember like Simeon, when I saw this and I was a kid, I remember this film right now. And this was like a how can I say that? Fairy. Can I say that in English?
Yeah, it's
Fairy.
like a fairy tale.
Uh
It was a fairy tale in a way,
fairy.
I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
This was so beautiful. This just I think she gave me the I don't know the power
Ambition.
to make cinema. Yeah, the ambition. She gave it to me because when I saw this, I said, okay, we can do things like this and talk about us. It was a mystery and a fairy everything movie, but it was like so us, and it was with Casa. So I remember it when I was young, but right now it's difficult because we are the market, and the market is applying its rules. So if you want to get out of these rules, you can, but it's like risky, it's like dangerous. And every time someone try it, it's because this is somebody who have many have maybe the money to do it, have the network. But if a new one wanna do something like that, the market will say, okay, you can do things like this, but the market is not waiting for you, and
Yeah,
this is the kind of side. Mm.
that's 100%. And then I also think like what the kind of films that are being funded and the kind of films that are going to the festivals and have a chance to be on television and stuff. And then the more you make that kind of work, the more an audience is going to expect that kind of work. And the more the audience is going to think, oh, this is a good film because it's what they already know. So they're comfortable. And in general, maybe that's the times we're in a really weird time in the world and people want security that a film is going to be like this and the storyline is this. I mean, it's very codified, of course, how a film is
Yeah.
built, right? And then if you are experimenting in the form or pushing back in the way people are feeling or make them uneasy watching it, they don't like that. And so I personally don't, I wish because as somebody who keeps, telling stories through dance and mixture and, my film is sometimes played as experimental, sometimes a documentary, sometimes a screen dance, sometimes not. It's like, um, yeah, I don't think there is much in that realm, honestly.
I'm sorry to hear that. So that's a little push to everyone watching.
Well, can I jump in to share my experience about that? For me, when it comes to pushing boundaries, I always think about Alain Bidard, who
Oh yeah.
is a
Mm.
filmmaker from Martinique, and but he's doing animation films.
Yeah.
So he has two feature films, Battle Dream, and the second one is Opal. And he tackles topics about identity and about love. And he does it in a very, I think it's straightforward, but it's also poetic, and I think it's very Martinican. So every time I watch his film, I always get this feeling, inside my heart, like, wow, the way Yannick described what he felt when he watched Simeon. But every time the circle comes back to what you think is the beginning, you realize that you're actually going deeper into the story, but it's not. It's going against what we have right now, meaning that we hear that big companies are telling writers to dumb down the stories because people watch films now while scrolling on their phones, so they don't understand what's going on. So they need to make this. So they ask writers to flatten the stories. Can be very analytic and think about, yes, so the filmmaker did this too. So the characters say that, so we get to feel this and that. But when I was watching the film, I totally forgot about it. I was so focused into the story to understand. You don't have to stick to one way of storytelling. Don't limit yourself. Try to expand the way you tell stories. And that also brings me to my question about the difference between, or maybe there's no difference, but I do feel there is a difference of perspective when you're a Caribbean filmmaker living in the region and when you're Caribbean filmmaker, but you live in the diaspora. So I wanted to ask you, both of you, how do you see the relationship between Caribbean-based artists and diaspora artists? How do you see this relationship, and how does this relationship shape Caribbean cinema?
What I can say is that I make difference between the story, the narrative. There's a story happening in real life that you can put in a book. Cinema, books, and everything is like a tool, and who you are is what you want to say, what you see, and how you learn to tell this story. And this is for me the real shift, because before social media, people had time to read, people had time to go to cinema and talk about it. But when I looked at it, it's difficult, because it's not just how you push boundaries or how you tell new kind of story. It's just how people get interest of what you have to say about them or about the way where you're living. And it's just that I think the public is not interested anymore about how you can make them see them, you know.
I totally understand and I agree. Also, 2 points that was very important to me, what you said is one, making the time to see something and also to discuss afterwards, right? As artists, in the old-fashioned idea, how we function is you show the society to the society itself. We're always a little bit outside society. We always look at things a little bit different, and then you tell the story, and then maybe you reflect back to a society what you see or see it in a different way. And that's always been a very important function of any art, whether it's poetry or dance or music or film. So the reason I always call myself a Caribbean maker and not a Caribbean American, and not trying to go, is because of Maurice Condé. Maurice gave me the permission when I was a young maker and I was only choreographer at the time. What she talked about, even though she was living in Ivory Coast, she was living in Paris, wherever she was living, she was from Guadeloupe and a Caribbean maker. She always distinguished not just the islands, but look at how the islands were all connected by a shared history of being colonized by different European countries, and that we all have more connection to the mother country, with the colonized country, than to each other. That's what we have in common. And that to be from the Caribbean, whether you abroad or inside the Caribbean, doesn't matter. And therefore, you're a Caribbean artist. That's what you always said. I've embraced that as somebody born and raised in Curacao. And then I lived in, Cuba, Puerto Rico, everywhere else I've lived afterwards, always wanting to be in the Caribbean, feeling kind of guilty not being in the Caribbean. That's why, and then I was just there. But I do think that that some people find a little bit more freedom, like myself, to be still very much a Caribbean artist, but to play a little bit more with storytelling, because I also made the decision to teach alongside filmmaking, because when I was just doing filmmaking as my profession, I felt that then I had to direct a commercial, direct things that I didn't want to do. And I decided, like, if I want to make money with my films, then I'm going to have to make a certain amount of films. So that then it became more about the general practicality of being an artist in the world. In a way, I don't think there's much of a difference, but I know that the pressures of living in a small community is maybe different, and maybe you can't have access to resources. Although when I go to Curacao, they have money from the Dutch Film Fund. I mean, people get more money there than I get here. So it's all relative, right? It's all relative. Some of the people who are able to access, and that's recent, and they access money for sort of this Dutch Film Fund is now interested in funding people who are living in the Caribbean. So that might really change the quality of the films coming from there.
So the Dutch Film Fund is primarily for Curaçao, or is it for the Caribbean overall?
From all the, so Curaçao, Aruba, Bonaire, Ceiba, Sint Eustatius, Sint Maarten, and I think so now, like the former or still, we're still colonies, like former or still colonized Bonaire islands. Yeah, and they started this recent thing that Caribbean, they used to not be able to access that money, but now they can.
So what's the name of the fund for those who are watching who weren't aware of this opportunity?
It's Nederlands Film Fund, and I think the program is Caribbean focused.
It's really exciting, the funds that are being created to create space for voices.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. And you see, yeah, it's fantastic. And you saw a lot of more films from the islands because of that reason, because before there was zero access. So I'm really all for it, 100%.
Yeah.
But you can see in Guadeloupe is kind of different because uh, I will say with my experience, but having access to funds here is more difficult. And if you don't tell the story who is giving you money wanted to see, it can be difficult.
Oh,
And
100%.
as I said, the market is also people who give money. And in Guadeloupe is very difficult because from my experience, I had a proposition of co-producing was funded, but it wasn't the beginning. But the story didn't apply to Caribbean. And I didn't want to do it. And this is, you can't do this. You say, we didn't see it. We didn't read the script. And so this happened like many times. Yeah, this happening every time. So this is sad. This is sad because when you want to say story about us or story about just the colonized situation, it will be against who is giving money. And as it's against, they won't give you the money. So you have to do it in your way. And if you do it in your way, you have to go like festival. So this is a point where Caribbean indie island is facing a difficulty. There's a film on Netflix. I don't like it. Even it's a good picture for Martinique and for the Caribbean. The story which is tell inside is not with us, it's against us. But
No, I
people
understand.
will understand this
Yes,
after
absolutely.
many years. Yeah.
So it was not written by us, it was written about us. Is that what you're
yes,
saying?
yes,
It was a story that emphasized the stereotypes already existing about Guadeloupe and not the story
exactly.
that is maybe of what's living in Guadeloupe or Martinique.
We were having this conversation about whose story are we is being touted as Caribbean story, right?
Yeah,
Whose story is it? If it's not by us, how is it our story,
yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is kind of sad because I think we don't need this kind of story. We need more peace. We need more love. We need more things like making people think. But now we are just seeing like people showing stereotypes, showing like fantasy, if I can say this, but the way they hope to live or they think people is living is just like this. And after that, it's a bad image because in a few years, well, like in the future, we will understand that it was not for us, but it was
Mm,
made by people using us to tell this and make money, first of
hmm
all.
hmm
First, this is the first point because they don't do it like for love or for empathy. It's just for money, and
hmm
they do it for money, so they have to sell it. So whatever they say, they don't care. And if
hmm
you don't like it, if you say no, you can't do it. Who are you to tell me this?
You know, we're everywhere on the planet, living in every country in the world, wanting to see our story on the screen, and then going, is this our story?
Is this us? Yes. But some people don't ask this
Yeah,
question.
they just assume.
Yeah, if they see like Martinique on the screen, they say, "Oh, it's from us, it's us." But they don't ask. And as I told you, literature, and when you read, you can read a film by many layers. And from this point, I think that yeah, there are points which is against us, very against us, against black people in general. but this is in some sub layers that people will not see in the first place. They will see the very good image, good quality. They will see action, they will see guns, things like that. And with the kind of things like this, like series, I know, like Netflix, when you finish a episode, you don't have time to wait and see everything. You just skip to the other one as fast as possible. So they have to binge watch everything, like in one night. Everybody will say, "Ah, it was beautiful, very good image," and don't talk about sub layers. So we have like Karukerament, we did it, a very good podcast about it, because
Very
we are
good.
one
Thank
we are
you.
Ah,
one in 1,000 thinking about this, thinking about the sub layers. But sub layers are, for me, the more important, because this is what is staying after time, and that's very sad.
Thank you so much, Yannick. Maëlla, closing question on your part.
So I want to talk about the future of Caribbean cinema. What excites you? Because we talk a lot about, the challenges, but what excites you about the future of Caribbean cinema?
well, I think what excites me, there is more content. And because there is more content, there will be other films too, because that's the nature of it. And I think there's more interest in it too. Like in Curaçao, they have also filmmakers who went to film school in the Netherlands and they returned to the island. So that's very new, the return to make work there and live there. The field will open, and Caribbean people, we are a hybrid, always mixing, and we're always looking out. And so we consume a lot. Also, I think I mean, especially when you're on the island. Um, so I am excited about what's going to come, and it was exciting already to see so many new filmmakers from the islands, living in the islands, and also abroad. We'll go back and forth because that's what's happening too. They need good actors. Some actors are in Europe, and then they come back to play, and then they keep the connection with the home country, like
It's like when someone like Jessica Genius have his film in Cannes, like Samuel Safran also. It's inspiring because you, they are struggling very hard. But when you see from this struggling, they can go that in this point of I can say screening for the world. This is making eyes on us and inspiring people. So what is good, and this was also our journey, if I can say this, is to make our films go in the world, not only in Guadeloupe or Caribbean. And this is the way that people can see us, and maybe it will be inspiring. This is where our film will be shown, will be screened, and who will see them.
I was just thinking because Curaçao got in the World Cup, and as most people know, every Caribbean person was so happy that Curaçao got to the World Cup.
Yeah.
It was like, we got into the
Yeah.
World Cup, you know what I'm saying?
I remember when Jamaica once there is like 98.
Yeah,
Jamaica was there. I was watching them playing like it was Guadeloupe, because I
yeah,
saw
same,
Guadeloupe on the field, and I
same.
totally agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been an amazing conversation, and I hate to bring it to an end, but we have to for now. We can still keep on talking. I'll give you
Yeah.
her email, you get his email, and we can all continue this dialogue. Um, let's just end this with 3 words that you each want to share to inspire the future generations of filmmakers.
Stay true to yourself.
Thank you.
Be
Thank you.
bold.
Bold. Say true to yourself. Be bold. Yannick.
For me, it's like I was going to say be yourself, and or be proud. Peace and love.
Mm, mm.
Keep creating, and so it's going to be more than 5 words. Keep creating and don't be afraid to shine.
My
Yeah.
words are come together. or together we can do this. Stay together. That's it. And I want to thank you, Maëlla. Thank you, Gabri.
Maëlla.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Yannick. And thank you, our audience, for watching this amazing conversation. Thank you, and good night.